Today we are strapping
Have
in
you
for
ever
a deep
heard
dive
of the
into
Asian
well, a
unicorn?
biological paradox.
It's a
We're
real
talking about an
animal,
animal that
but
is
it's one of the
simultaneously a
rarest on
scientific
Earth.
reality
Meet
and,
the
a
slough,
modern myth.
a
Right.
An
mysterious
animal so
creature
rare, so
living deep
incredibly
in the
elusive that
innominative
it earned the
mountains of
nickname the
Laos
Asian
and
unicorn.
Vietnam.
We are
With its
peeling back
long,
the curtain
straight
on the
horns
Saola,
and striking white
Pseudorex
facial markings,
singetensis. And
it's
that nickname
truly a
is
sight
not
to
hyperbole.
behold.
I mean, imagine a
In
creature
fact,
that was completely
scientists
unknown to
only
science
discovered
until
it in
1993.
Which is
1993.
basically
The
yesterday in
Saola is so
historical terms.
unique, it
Exactly. And
belongs
yet,
to
in
its
the,
very
3
own
short decades
genus.
since its discovery, it has raced
These
straight into a
solitary
conservation
animals
emergency.
are
Our source
incredibly
material is a
shy and
fascinating
live
stack of
in
research, primarily
remote,
focusing on its
dense
discovery,
forests,
taxonomy, and
which makes them
its near ghostly
extremely
existence
hard
in the
to
wild.
find.
Our mission here is to understand two
Sadly,
things.
Okay.
they
First,
are
how does a
critically
large mammal, one of the
endangered
biggest
due to
discovered in the last
habitat
half
loss
century,
and
stay hidden in
illegal
the age of
hunting.
satellites and instant
Because
communication?
they are
And
so
second,
rarely
what
seen,
happens when you
every
discover a
bit of
species only to
information
immediately
is
realize you might be
precious.
too late to save it?
It's a genuinely
Conservationists
shocking
are
situation.
working around
The
the
Saola
clock
was
to
formally described in
protect this
1993,
amazing
but the most
species
recent
before
reliable record we have, a movement-triggered camera trap photo that was captured a whole decade ago in 2013.
A decade. Wow.
That gap it's terrifying. Yeah. The species is listed as critically endangered, and many conservationists fear the harsh reality that it may already be functionally extinct in the wild.
Okay, let's unpack this moment in 1993. Because for the world of zoology, this was like finding a brand new continent.
It really was.
A team from the Vietnamese Ministry of Forestry and the Worldwide Fund for Nature was conducting a joint survey in the Vi Quang National Park in Vietnam. This was May 1992.
And they weren't expecting this at all. The team was focused on, analyzing existing biodiversity, but on May 21st, they procured a skull and those strange, long, parallel horns from a local hunter.
And they found another set the next day.
They did. This discovery was the catalyst for the formal description the following year, in 93.
I mean, it's just stunning. You have to remember, we're not talking about a new, species of frog or some tiny insect.
Yeah, right.
Finding a large mammal like this in a relatively well-surveyed part of the world was unheard of. It was the first discovery of a large mammal in that entire area in over 50 years.
It just proves how vast the blind spots in our global knowledge truly are.
Yeah.
And the scientific interest immediately exploded because of its physical traits. It was immediately placed into its own genus, Pseudorex.
And scientists struggled at first, right, with where it fit in the family tree.
They did. Was it more like a goat or a sheep, a member of the Caprinae subfamily? Or was it a cow or buffalo, one of the bovinae? That initial confusion just shows how unique its morphology was.
Wait, so if it looked so much like an African oryx, which is what the name Pseudorex implies, why was there any doubt it was a bovid, like cattle?
Well, because morphology can be deceptive. Those long, parallel horns. That's a case of convergent evolution.
Ah.
They look like an oryx, but that doesn't define the relationship. The genetic data, however, was the ultimate tiebreaker. DNA analysis confirmed that the Saola belongs firmly within the tribe Bovini.
Which includes all the heavyweights. Buffalo, domestic cattle, bison, yaks.
All of them.
So it's definitely related to a cow, but here's where we get to the real so what, the truly mind-blowing part of the Saola story.
Precisely. Recent genomic analysis has definitively placed the Saola not just in the Bovini tribe, but as the most primitive and earliest diverging member of that entire group.
So it's not a modern twist on a cow, it's the ancient blueprint.
Absolutely. The Saola split from the common ancestor of all other modern bovines between, 10.8 and 16.2 million years ago.
Wow.
We are talking about the Middle Miocene epoch. This is deep geological history. This isn't just a new cow. This is an evolutionary relic, a living museum piece hiding in the steep river valleys of the Annamite Range.
That is the true scale of the discovery. Finding a highly specialized survivor from 16 million years ago alive today.
Right.
That deep history really emphasizes its almost mythical status. Even the names tell a story. The common name Saola comes from a Thai or Lao language, translating to spinning wheel post horn.
Which is a direct reference to the shape of those parallel horns.
And while Pseudorex is a nod to its visual resemblance to the Arabian or African oryx, the name used by the Hmong people in Laos is the most evocative.
Satsupup.
What does that mean again?
It means the polite animal, because it moves so quietly and secretly through the dense undergrowth, rarely disturbing anything. A ghost with an ancient, noble pedigree.
Let's move to its physical characteristics, which are equally unique. We have to base our description on What, the handful of documented sightings?
Yeah, and particularly the notes taken on Martha, a captive female observed briefly back in 1998. It sounds like she was built for stealth and camouflage.
What kind of size are we talking about?
She was relatively medium-sized for a bovid, standing about 84 centimeters, so just over 33 inches, at the shoulder, and weighing in the ballpark of 80 to 100 kilograms.
And the coat.
A deep, uniform chocolate brown. It's perfect camouflage in a shaded forest. But then you have these striking high-contrast white patches across the face, the throat, and the sides of the neck, and a sharp black dorsal stripe running down the spine.
And those horns, the spindle horns, that's the feature that got it named.
They're on both sexes, dark brown or black, nearly parallel, and exceptionally long for the animal's size, between 35 and 50 centimeters.
So twice the length of its head.
Exactly. They really do look like the wooden spindle of a spinning wheel.
So beyond the striking visual appearance, the Saola has several specialized physical adaptations that make it highly unique among even its distant bovine relatives.
And we have to talk about the maxillary glands.
Yes, the sinuses. The source mentioned they are possibly the largest among all animals. That sounds massive.
They are. These are large rectangular hollows on the face, covered by a thick flap, and they produce this incredibly thick, pungent, grayish-green, semi-solid paste.
Whoa. So what is that for? It's not for breathing, I assume.
No, it is used for heavy-duty chemical signaling.
So what does a secretive animal need such a heavy-duty signal for?
It's all about marking behavior. The Saola rubs this secretion against rocks and low-hanging vegetation. Given that they're solitary and cryptic, this scent is their primary means of communication.
Identifying territory, signaling readiness to mate.
All that, leaving their unique calling card in a dense, difficult environment. It's their way of saying, I was here, without ever having to be seen.
That's a perfect encapsulation of their ghost status. Now, let's talk about defense. While its skin is thin over most of the body.
It thickens dramatically, up to 5 millimeters near the nape of the neck and the upper shoulders.
Like natural armor plating.
That's the theory. It's thought to protect it against rivals' horns during territorial disputes, or maybe against predators.
But perhaps the strangest adaptation relates not to defense, but to feeding. Tell me about those feeding tools. The idea of a long tongue for a bovid sounds almost alien.
It's a remarkable feature. The Saola possesses a tongue capable of extending up to 16 centimeters.
16 centimeters.
Yes, that's long enough for it to reach its own eyes and the upper parts of its face.
Wow.
The tongue is also covered in fine, backward-pointing barbs. It uses this specialized tool to pull leaves and vegetation into its mouth.
A 16-centimeter tongue used like a prehensile hand for grabbing leaves. That sounds incredibly specific. Does that mean it has a very narrow menu?
It does, and that's a massive vulnerability. While they eat common things like spleenwort and certain shrubs, critically, observations show it feeds on Schismopteglottis.
And what's special about that plant?
Here's the key insight. Other herbivores in its range actively avoid that plant.
Why?
It's difficult or maybe even toxic for them.
Hmm.
The Saola has evolved to fill a very, very specific dietary niche.
The significance being?
If that specific plant, that key food source, is wiped out by habitat loss or climate shifts, the Saola is instantly without a necessary part of its diet. It can't just switch to grass like a common cow. It highlights just how exquisitely specialized and therefore fragile this ancient species is.
The Saola truly lives up to that ghost moniker. We've established its biology, but the fact that trained scientists have never observed one in the wild is just staggering.
All our ecological knowledge comes from local reports and camera traps.
So what do we know about its habitat?
We know its habitat is extremely restricted to the wet, evergreen, and deciduous forests within the Annamite Range, straddling Vietnam and Laos.
Right.
They are hill specialists, preferring steep river valleys between 300 and 1,800 meters above sea level, though they reportedly migrate down to lower elevations during the winter.
And their total known range is only about 5,000 square kilometers.
Which is tiny for a mammal of this size.
As for behavior, local reports suggest the polite animal is active both day and night, resting primarily during the hot midday hours.
And while usually solitary, which is perfect for avoiding detection, groups of 2 or 3 have been reliably seen. Occasionally larger groups, up to 7 individuals, which is similar to the grouping patterns of species like the Cape bushbuck.
And going back to the few captive reports, the Saola, while calm around humans, was noted to be terrified of dogs.
Yes, its reaction to dogs involved snorting, thrusting its horns defensively, and arching its back. Since dogs often accompany hunters, this tells us a great deal about its likely primary defense reaction against predators, or even incidental human threats.
Okay, let's shift from the scant observations to the deep history written in its DNA. A major genomic analysis published in 2025 provided a chilling look at its underlying genetic health.
Right.
It suggests its vulnerability isn't just modern.
This is where we connect the dots between the Saola's ancient origins and its modern crisis. The genomic study showed that the Saola population split into two distinct lines, a northern one and a southern one, at least 20,000 years ago.
And certainly no later than 5,000 years ago. What caused that separation?
It was likely driven by large-scale climatic shifts at the end of the last ice age, when the world was rapidly warming and habitats were shifting, or possibly the beginning of human sedentarization, where early agricultural groups began to divide the landscape.
But this wasn't a healthy expansion, was it? It signaled a long-term decline that started long before the modern era.
Exactly. The separation was accompanied by a steady, long-term reduction in the effective population size.
So when we talk about effective population size, we mean the number of individuals actually contributing offspring to the next generation.
Precisely. It's the measure of genetic health. The study estimates that the Saola population has not exceeded 5,000 individuals in the last 10,000 years.
Wait, so if the species has been this rare and genetically vulnerable for the past 10 millennia, are we just trying to save a species that was already doomed by history? Does that ancient vulnerability render modern conservation efforts futile?
That's an important question. The study confirms the species was inherently fragile due to an ancient genetic bottleneck, but it doesn't mean it was doomed. It means the species survived 10,000 years under its own pressures. But adding modern human threats, industrial logging, hunting, fragmentation on top of that existing vulnerability is what pushed it from naturally rare to critically endangered in just a few decades. The ancient frailty makes our current efforts even more critical.
That history of inherent vulnerability makes the current threats just so devastating. Within that tiny, fragile 5,000 square kilometer range, the Saola is facing a perfect storm of modern pressures.
We can clearly define the dual existential threats. Threat number one is habitat loss and fragmentation.
Yeah.
Due to its restrictive habitat needs and its intense aversion to human proximity, remember the polite animal nickname, if the forest breaks up, the Saola simply cannot adapt or cross human-occupied areas.
And threat number two is poaching and the illegal trade.
It's targeted for its furs, its meat, which is sold in local restaurants and food markets, and ingredients for traditional medicines. Crucially, hunters gain high esteem in their local villages simply for capturing a carcass of this legendary animal.
Which increases the value of the animal simply because it is so scarce.
But the primary tragedy, the overwhelming threat, is accidental. Conservation groups call it the snare crisis. The Saola is frequently caught incidentally in snares set for more common crop-raiding animals, like wild boar and sambar deer.
That sounds like an overwhelming problem that covers the entire forest floor. What are the numbers that really drive home the scale of this crisis?
They are staggering. The conservation groups working in the Saola's habitat have removed over 26,651 snares from known Saola habitats so far.
Over 26,000.
Stop and think about that number. 26,000 plus. That means that across their entire restricted range, there is almost one trap for every square kilometer. Every moment for a Saola is a life or death gamble with this ubiquitous, indiscriminate threat.
I can't even fathom what that pressure must feel like for a naturally shy, solitary animal. This accidental trapping, combined with the Saola's extreme rarity, creates that fundamental knowledge gap we talked about earlier.
And that's the core challenge. Because the species is so rare, field surveys aimed at finding intact populations are no longer considered the primary conservation priority.
Why? Just because the chance of success is too low?
Exactly. Remember, trained scientists have never observed a Saola in the wild. We have to rely almost entirely on interview-based sighting histories from villagers to locate potential hotspots.
So the priority isn't observation. It's immediate action based on circumstantial evidence.
Precisely. The lack of data forces an action-first approach. Given that immense challenge, conservation efforts are focused and, frankly, desperate. The Saola Working Group, a coalition of organizations including the IUCN and WWF, was formed back in 2006.
I remember hearing about some pretty extreme measures being considered. Cloning.
Yes. A last resort investigation was launched by the Vietnam Academy of Science and Technology into cloning. But while technically possible in theory, the effort was ultimately compromised by the severe lack of available female Saola donors and receptive females.
You can't clone an animal you can't even find.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's not a short-term solution.
So where is the focus now?
It has shifted heavily to direct threat mitigation, the constant grinding removal of snares, and the establishment of a conservation breeding program, which was urgently called for in 2017. They need to find enough individuals, establish a founder population, and protect them from the wild pressures before time runs out completely.
The story of the Saola, Vietnamensis, is one of profound contrasts. A large mammal only scientifically recognized in modern times, yet carrying the deep, ancient genetics of an evolutionary line stretching back 16 million years.
It really is.
It's a shy, beautiful ghost caught in the crosshairs of modern human development and ancient population vulnerabilities.
Despite its precarious status, it has already transcended its obscurity to become a cultural icon. The Saola was the mascot of the 2021 Southeast Asian Games, but its greatest urgency lies in how conservation efforts must proceed for a highly threatened cryptic species.
So what does the Saola teach us about the bigger picture of conservation?
It raises an extremely important question that affects all secretive wildlife globally. We're trying to save a species that remains almost entirely a ghost. Given the staggering number of snares removed and the continuous lack of hard data, the fact that we know more about its 16 million year history than its current behavior, the priority must be immediately implementing physical threat mitigation.
So action has to bypass the traditional need for scientific field data.
It has to. What does it mean to try and save a species when the urgency of the threat overrides the knowledge gap? That's something for you to think about long after our deep dive ends.